replacement of items whose maintenance and repair cost increases with time, ignoring the changes in the value of money during the period. So, when maintenance cost and repair cost increases with the time during the period, what is the ideology that has to be followed in this particular case? So that is so this is a small theorem that he has revised. The cost of maintenance of a machine is given as a function of increasing with the time and its scrap value is constant. After some time, uh, the scrap value remains the same. So as the maintenance is increasing with the time. So if time is measured continuously, then the average annual cost will be minimized by replacing the machine when the average cost today becomes equal to the current maintenance cost. So if time is measured continuously, then the average annual cost will be minimized uh, by replacing the machine when the average cost today becomes equal to the current maintenance cost. So if time is measured in discrete units, then the average annual cost will be minimized by replacing the machine when the next period's maintenance cost becomes greater than the current average cost. So these are the two cases that occur in this particular policy. Uh, so that is one has to. So when time t is continuously variable, assume let us c is equal to capital cost of the item, rt is equal to operating and the maintenance cost of the item at t. S is equal to scrap value of the item, n is equal to number of years the machine is in use, and the total cost Tn is equal to total cost incurred during n years. So T average is equal to average annual cost of the item. So obviously annual cost of the item at any time T is equal to C minus S plus RT. So C means capital cost of the equipment initially, and every year the scrap value or the uh, depreciating value, what we can call it as C minus S plus RT is operating and maintenance cost. So annual cost, average annual cost, this is nothing but the average annual cost is equal to C minus S plus RT, where C is equal to capital cost of the item, S is equal to scrap value or depreciating value, and RT is equal to annual maintenance cost. So like this, since the maintenance cost incurred during any years becomes so integral of RT dt, and the total cost incurred on the item will become Tn is equal to C minus S plus integral of RT dt, and therefore as the average cost is given by Tn by n is equal to 1 by n within bracket C minus S integral of this thing. This is a particular equation. Now we shall find the value of n for which T average is minimum. So n is number of years at which the uh, minimum value can be identified. So therefore, differentiating T average with respect to n, d by dn of this thing, T average is equal to with respect to n. 1 by n squared, this ఇక్కడ to the power of n ఉంది కాబట్టి 1 by n squared C minus S minus 1 by square 1 by n square integral of 0 to n dt plus 1 by n into RT. So we have next for minimum of T average is equal to d by dn of T average is 0, and you equate this to 0, and automatically this Rn comes into, we have Rn is equal to 1 by n into C minus S plus 1 by n into integral of R to dt equal to T average. So thus the item should be replaced when the average annual cost to date becomes equal to the current maintenance cost. So you have to replace the particular item when the annual cost, average annual cost becomes equal to the maintenance cost. So it is inevitable to replace automatically, and therefore next, when time is a discrete variable, previous case is when time is a continuous variable. When time is a continuous variable, here it is when time is discrete variable. In this case, total cost incurred n is equal to Tn is equal to C minus S sigma of RT dt. Previously it is integral of, whereas in this particular case it is sigma of the number of years. Average annual cost is given by T average equal to Tn by n, number of years. So 1 by n into C minus S plus sigma, T is equal to 1 to n, number of years, RT. The average total cost T average will be minimum provided the following relationship is satisfied. Delta average of n minus 1 less than 0, less than delta T average of n. So n minus 1 years and n years. N minus 1 for how much it is and how much for it is n years, how much for it is n minus n. By using finite differences, differentiating the equation 1.4 under the summation sign by definition of first discrete difference, delta average equal to T average into n plus 1 minus T average into n. So therefore, if you substitute T average is equal to the previous equation, C minus S and all those things, and here T average is this much. If you substitute, automatically it will come like this, and summate it, finally it comes like this. So I need not explain. So this is since T average greater than 0 for minimum T average, so R n plus 1 divided by n plus 1 greater than sigma of RT, n is equal to 1 to n. He has given n into n plus 1, C minus n. So n by n minus 1, or R is equal to, he has calculated sigma 1 is equal to n, RT by n plus C minus n by n. Or R is equal to, from this he has evaluated Tn by when by virtue of equation 1.4. So this is by virtue of this particular 1.4, he has assumed that for n years or n plus 1 years. Similarly, it can be shown that Rn is equal to Tn by n. So by virtue of delta average into n minus 1 less than 0, thus n is optimal when the average annual cost is minimum. N is optimal. Number of years is optimal when the average annual cost is minimum. Therefore, Rn plus 1 is equal to Tn by n greater than Rn. So because it is plus n, it is only n. So thus the theorem is proved. He has given. So this you cannot understand. Only one thing is that when you solve the problems, you can understand the particular thing. Money value, present worth factor, and discount rate. So in the examination, what is the definition of money value? What is PWF, present worth factor, and what is discount rate? They are going to ask. So time value of money or value of money, what is we are going to get? Generally, in establishing mathematical models for optimum replacement, always the value of money does not remain constant, and it is subjected to change over a period of time. And so the value of money play an important role in modern development. So the rupee value goes up, the rupee value goes down. in most of the cases, in most of the time, in recent time. In such a case, and we have to establish a criteria to find out the time value, value of money. So, an optimum mathematical model, we have to find out to analyze the value of money when time, when the uh, value of the money changes from time to time. So consequently, time value of money means the value of a unit money is different in different time periods. So the value of a sum of money received today is more than its value received after some time. Conversely, the sum of money is received in future is less valuable than it is today. So in other words, the present worth of a rupee received after some time will be less than the rupee received today. So since a rupee received today has more value and rational investors would prefer current receipt to future receipts. So the value of money can also be referred to as time preference for money. Now generally you can understand this particular thing. So it will have a particular value today. Dollar value is 70 rupees. After 1 week, it will go to 72 rupees. And after some time, it may go for 75 rupees like that. And so therefore, the value of money today is more valuable than the in future. That is nothing but in the future, in the conversely, he is telling that uh, the sum of money received in future is less valuable than today. Conversely, it is a reverse interpretation. So that is the value of the money. One has to present worth factor. So this is the value of money over a period of time depends upon the nominal interest rate R. The present value of money for a period of time depends on the nominal interest rate. The value of 1 rupee today would be equal to 1 into 1 plus R, that is interest rate after 1 year. Or the present value of rupee to be spent after 1 year is equal to 1 into 1 plus R percentage to the power of minus 1 at the interest rate of R% per year. Similarly, the present value of rupee to be spent after n years is equal to 1 plus R to the power of minus n, that is 1 by 1 plus R, and is called as present worth factor or the present value of interest factor PVIF at the rate of R% per n years. So sometimes it is also known as compound amount factor of 1 rupee spent in n years. So if you take some money, borrow from money from some particular lender, after 1 year with interest, R% interest, it will go to, this is the money you have borrowed with R% interest over the particular 1 year, it may increase. So like the value would be equal to after 1 year. So the same thing applicable, it is going to be called as, whereas 1 by 1 plus R, 1 by 1 plus R is going to be called as the present worth factor. That is the original money plus interest uh, amounting to inversely is going to be called as present worth factor or present value interest factor. It is in terms, in other terms. So most it is going to be called as present worth factor. Next, replacement of items whose maintenance and repair cost increases with time. Value of money also changes with time. Replacement of items whose maintenance and repair cost increases with time, and value of money also changes with time. As already explained in the preceding section, the money value can be interpreted in two different ways. Accordingly, the optimal replacement policy can be determined by the following two methods. The maintenance cost increases with the time. We know it. The maintenance cost increases with the time and the money value decreases because the cost is increasing. Maintenance cost is, the value of the money decreases with constant rate depreciation value is given, depreciation of the particular equipment is generally given. The amount to be spent is borrowed at a given rate of interest under a condition of repaying it in pre-decided number of installments. So the amount to be spent is borrowed at a given rate of interest under condition of repaying it in predetermined number of installments. So if you take a particular money after 1 year, it will be 1 plus R percentage. So that there will be a condition. It will be paid. By that time, it will be paid with interest in a certain interval of time. That is 3 months, 4 months. For every 3 months, you are going to pay 1 plus R percentage will be calculated, and it comes around suppose uh, uh, it becomes if you borrow 10,000, it will become 11,000. Assume that, and 11,000 divided by 12 months, and so automatically is 900 something like that is to be paid every month. So that is one way of repaying in pre-decided number of installments. In pre-decided. So, or sometimes if you are unable to pay in 12 months, you can calculate it to up to 18 months or 2 years, 24 months. So, like that, within that particular period, one has to pay it. So, the maintenance theorem, the maintenance cost increases with time and money value decreases at constant rate, that is depreciation value is given, then the replacement policy will be one replacement if next period's maintenance cost is greater than the weighted average cost of the previous month. So next, do not replace if the next period is cost is less than the weighted average cost of the previous periods. So weighted average cost means maintenance cost and other overhead costs are going to be called as weighted average cost. So replace if the next period's maintenance cost, next period's the maintenance cost, the present maintenance cost and other costs balance together, you need not replace. So if the maintenance cost is greater than the other cost means nothing but procuring of small replacement of items, then automatically you have to replace it. So do not replace if the next period's cost is less than the weighted average cost of the previous periods. So if the maintenance cost is less, automatically you need not replace. So method one, suppose the item, equipment or a machine is available for us for use over a series of time periods of equivalent intervals, say 1 year. Let us assume C is equal to capital cost or purchase cost of the item to be replaced. RT is equal to running cost or maintenance cost at the beginning of the first year, ith year. R is equal to rate of interest. V is equal to 1 plus R to the power of minus 1. That is 1 by 1 plus R, the present worth of a rupee to be spent a year. Hence, the proof can be divided into two major steps. Step 1, to find present worth of the total expenditure. Let the item is considered for replacement at the end of every year, every nth year. The year-wise present worth cost on the item in the successive cycle of n years can be computed as shown in the figure. So the entire thing, this is present worth factor. Year first year, C plus R1. Second year, it is R2V. And like that, third year, R3V. And like this, these are the things. So in the nth year, it is Rn into V to the power of n minus 1. Rn into V to the power of n plus 1. So C plus R1 into V to the power of n. N plus 2, R2 into V to the power of n plus 1. So like this there follows, and R2 into V to the power of 2n minus 1, C plus R1 into, so like this we have to generate, where R is the interest, C is the capital cost, V is equal to worth factor. Assuming that the item has no resale price at the time of replacement, the present worth of all of future discounted costs associated with the policy of replacing the item at the end of every n years will be given by Tn is equal to C plus R1 plus R2V uh, dash dash R into V to the power of n minus 1. So like this he has coupled all these things and so on. Summing up the right hand side, we get, so C plus R1 into 1 plus V to the power of n, V to the power of 2n, V to the power of 3n like this. So up to Rn years. So Tn is equal to T average divided by 1 minus V to the power of n. Tn plus 1 is equal to n plus 1, where the simplicity T average is equal to C plus R1, R2V, and all these things. Next, step 2, to determine the replacement policy so that Tn is minimum. Since n is the measure of discrete units, we shall use the method of finite difference in order to minimize the present worth expenditure. So thus Tn will be minimum if T of n plus 1 greater than T of n minus 1, delta T of n greater than 0, delta T n minus 1. So by the definition of first difference, delta Tn is equal to Tn plus 1 minus Tn. You have already previously, you have experienced all these things. T average into n plus 1 divided by 1 minus V to the power of n minus T average divided to the power of n into n 1 minus V to the power of n from equation 1.7. So if you simplify this, it will come like this. First, it is convenient to simplify the numerator delta Tn only. Thus, is nt is equal to this thing, and if you go through this, delta Tn is equal to it is coming like this. Simply setting n minus 1 for n in 1.8 in the above equation, delta T n minus 1 is equal to V to the power of n minus 1 into 1 minus V divided by 1 minus V to the power of n into 1 minus V to the power of n minus 1. So it is coming like this. After little simplification on right hand side, delta T n minus 1 is equal to V to the power of n minus 1 to 1 minus V divided by 1 minus V to the power of n into 1 minus V to the power of n minus 1. So all these things. So you need not bother about this particular derivation, all those things. And you can understand this everything in the particular while solving the problems. You can understand the all these proofs and theories. They are not required. That is more than sufficient. The special case he has given here. It is interesting to note that the replacement quantity given by the equation 1.5b, when money value was not counted, is a limiting case of that given by equation 1.12 when money value is considered, because if the interest rate R is greater than 0, R is more than, R implies 0, then V is equal to 1. Thus, taking limit of 1.12 as V tends to 1, we get, so a simplification R to the power of R n plus 1 months or years, whatever it may, C plus R1, R2, R3 up to Rn. So first year, and this is 1 plus something n times. Next, R n minus n plus 1 is equal to greater than Tn of n Rn when the scrap value S0, which is identical to the result. So proof method 2, and similarly this proof is also not required. You need not bother. Replacement of items that fail completely and suddenly is a particular case. Replacement of items that fail completely and suddenly. A system generally consists of huge number of low period components that are increasingly liable to failure with age. Electronic items like bulbs, resistors, tube lights generally fail all of a sudden instead of gradual deterioration. The sudden failure of the results in complete breakdown of the system. The system may contain a collection of such items, just an item like a single tube light. So the cost of failure in such a case will be fairly more than the cost of the item itself. So in addition, the value of the failed item is so small that the cost of keeping records of individual ages cannot be justified. For example, a tube or a condenser in an aircraft costs little, but the failure of such a low-cost item may lead to the airplane to crash. Hence, we use some replacement policy for such items which would minimize the possibility of complete breakdown. So this is the very interesting topic, replacement of items that fail sudden. In the examination, most of the problems depends on this particular topic, and therefore one has to concentrate on this particular thing. Even though it is costly in the aeroplanes, uh, you have to replace it in a particular period of time prematurely. If not, it will result in a great disaster, that is the failure of the entire plane. The following are the replacement policies which are applicable for the situation. Individual replacement policy in which an item replaced immediately after it fails. Individual replacement policy, this is. And a group replacement policy is concerned with those items that either work or fail completely. In this policy, a decision is made as regard at what equal intervals all the items are to be replaced simultaneously, irrespective of whether they have failed or not, with a provision to replace the items individually, which failed during the fixed group replacement period. So this is nothing but the failure of the bulbs can be taken into consideration. That is group replacement. It concerned with those items that either work or fail completely. So it may work or it may fail suddenly tomorrow. So we cannot predict, and therefore anticipating that all may fail in 1 week or 1 month, we have to uh, take necessary precaution to replace all the bulbs as a group. So that is going to be called as group replacement policy. And there is a trade-off between the individual replacement policy and the group replacement policy. Individual replacement. So lathe machine replacement is a individual replacement policy. Milling machine replacement is an individual replacement policy. So like that, whereas bulbs replacement, mass bulbs replacement, it is a group replacement policy. Hence, for a given problem, each of the replacement policies is evaluated and most economical policy is selected for implementation. So when you are replacing 1,000 bulbs at a time, you have to devise a particular policy in which year the maintenance cost or replacement of the items is less costlier. Then you have to select, and before that you have to replace them. So if we are unable to replace, and if it crosses, there will be huge amount of replacement of the bulbs, and therefore it is very difficult for the management to replace them in a shorter time. So because for procuring large items like 1,000 bulbs or 20,000 bulbs, it requires.
ఇక్కడ తోటలో అన్న బండి దగ్గర
ఒకసారి 3 ఎకరాలు ఒకసారి 3 ఎకరాలు పని పెట్టి అక్కడికి వెళ్ళకుండా
హలో ఆజాద్ ఆజాద్ మ్యూటింగ్ మైక్
సరే
302 సార్ ఓకే సార్.
There is a trade-off between the individual replacement policy and the group replacement. Hence, for a given problems, each of the replacement policies is evaluated, and most of the economical policy is selected for implementation. So that economical policy, when to replace, so that particular policy has to be selected, and therefore it is to be implemented. The optimal period of replacement is determined by calculating the minimum total cost. The total cost is calculated using probability of probability of failure at a time t, number of items failing during time t, cost of group replacement, cost of individual replacement. So all these factors are to be considered. One is cost of individual replacement. If one bulb fails, and what is the cost of replacement? Next, probability of failures at a particular time. In 1 month, how many bulbs are likely to fail? In 2 months, how many bulbs are likely to fail? In 6 months, how many bulbs are likely to fail? So the probability can be, through probability, we have to analyze the number of failures. So number of items failing during the particular time. In a 6 months period, how many bulbs fail? So that is very important. In 3 months time, how many bulbs fail? So if the number of bulbs are failing and the cost of individual replacement is becoming more and more costlier, then one has to go for individual replacement. Sorry, one has to go for group replacement. So that is the group replacement of items, bulbs, whatever it may be, depends on the four factors like that. The number of items failed in a particular time and probability of failure and total cost of failure. So all these things. Individual replacement policy, mortality theorem, and you can understand this individual replacement policy. In this policy, an equipment or an item is to be replaced as soon as it fails. So this is, if a bulb fails, you have to replace immediately, or else the lighting fails. So the machine below that particular light comes to standstill. So mortality tables will be referred to determine the lifespan of any equipment or the probability distribution of failure. So there will be certain tables that is the tables are going to be called as mortality tables. According to that, we have to estimate the life of the particular bulb or particular item, electronic item. To discuss such a type of replacement policy, the problem of human population is considered. No group of people ever existed under the conditions that all deaths are immediately replaced by births, and that there are no other entries or exits. Nevertheless, the reason for stating the problem under these two assumptions is that the analysis becomes more easy by keeping the virtual human population in mind. Later, such problems can also be translated into industrial items where death is equivalent to a part of failure and birth is equivalent to a new replacement. Thus, industries also face a fairly common situation. The following mortality theorem will make the conceptions clear. So the mortality theorem, a large population is subjected to a given mortality law for a very long period of time. All deaths are immediately replaced by births and there are no other entries or exits. And then the age distribution ultimately becomes stable and the number of deaths per unit time becomes constant. Number of deaths becomes constant, which is equivalent to the size of a total population divided by the mean age of the death. So this is a particular mortality theorem. So it has given certain theory, all these things. This theory is not required. The theorem, all those things are not required. You need not bother, go for this particular thing. To show that the age distribution ultimately becomes stable, let the probability of survival more than X times, all those things. So this theory, this proof is not required. Group replacement policy of items that fail suddenly and completely. Group replacement policy of items that fail suddenly and completely. The rate of replacement and the total cost involved in group replacement is based on the following theorem. Group replacement should be made at the end of Tth period if the cost of individual replacement for period T is greater than the average cost per period through the end of the period T. Group replacement is not advisable at the end of the period if the cost of the individual replacement at the end of the period T minus 1 is less than the average cost period of the through the end of the Tth period. So Tth period, T minus 1 period, you have to estimate, and accordingly these two conditions, A and B, two conditions are there, should be made, group replacement should be made at the end of the Tth period if the cost of individual replacement for the time period T is greater than the average cost per period through the end of T. So average cost has to be, so you are replacing the items for a particular period of time T. So 3 months, 4 months or 12 months is the supposed time. in that particular time, if you are able to replace, and if the cost is same throughout the year, then there is no problem. You can replace at any time. Group replacement is not as well at the end of the period T. If the cost of the individual replacement at the end of period T minus 1 is less than the average cost per period through the ith period. So if you continue to calculate first month, second month, 12 months like that, after the end of the 12th month, if the cost is still higher than group replacement, the cost is lesser, group replacement is not advisable. So this is proof. N is equal to total number of items in the system. NT is equal to number of items failing during time T. CT is equal to total cost of group replacement of time period T. And C1 is equal to individual replacement cost on failure. C2 is equal to cost per unit item cost of replacing in a group. So generally problems will come on this particular category. So N is equal to number of items, NT is equal to number of items failing during time period, that is 12 months or 1 year, 2 years, like that. CT, total cost of group replacement after time period T. Group replacement after time period T. C1 is equal to individual cost, individual replacement cost. CT is equal to item cost of replacement in a group. So if the single bulb is replaced, what is the individual cost? And C2 is equal to item cost in a group replacement. So these are the C1 and C2. What is the difference? One should understand. So therefore, the average cost of group replacement, per unit period of time during a period T will be CT by C, C of N plus N2 is the number of years, like that T minus 1 plus C2N divided by 1. So now, in order to determine the replacement age T, the average cost per period should be minimum. So the condition for minimum of f of t is delta of f of t minus 1 less than 0, delta of f of t. So this is the delta of f of t. This should be less than the previous time period. So delta t is equal to f of t plus 1 minus f of t. So what is f of t? What is f of t plus 1? So according to that, which must be greater than 0 for minimum f of t. That is C1 nt greater than Ct by t. And similarly, from delta of f of t minus 1 less than 0, we will get C1 nt minus 1 less than Ct by t. So therefore, C1 nt minus 1 less than Ct by t less than C1 nt. So it can also be noted that Cn greater than Ct by t implies C1 n1 divided by t plus 1 and all these things. So the average cost for t plus 1 periods greater than average cost for t periods. T periods means 12 months period. This is 10 plus 1, 13 months period. The average cost is greater than the average cost of 12 months. The average cost of 13 months is greater than the average cost of 12 months. So table 1.2 shows the failure rates of items for K periods. For K periods means first month, second month, third month, fourth month, like that K months. So percentage failing by the end of the period, lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3, lambda 4, like this, assumed like this. So let P1 is equal to probability of an item sudden failure nature, which was new when placed in position for use faced during the ith period of its life. Thus, the following probability distribution is obtained, assuming to replace the items as and when they fail. So this is P1, P2. P1 is equal to probability of failure in first period, lambda 1 by 100. P2 is equal to probability of failure in second period, lambda 2 minus lambda 1 divided by 100. So, and P3 is equal to probability of failure in the third period, that is lambda 3 minus lambda 2 divided by 100. And P4, P5 like this, yes, gone up to pk, the probability of failure is lambda k minus lambda k minus 1. This is 5 minus 4, k minus 1, previous period, divided by 100. Since the sum of the probabilities can never be greater than unity, and when the sum of all the above probabilities, say up to 5th period, is unity, then further probabilities P6, P7, P8, and so on will be 0. Thus, all the items are sure to fail by the end of the 5th week. So one has to analyze at what time they are failing. After the 5th week, they are all completely failing. So therefore, replacement will be in the 5th week. Furthermore, it is assumed that the items that failed during the period are replaced just before the end of that period. So if certain items are failing in 5th week, you have to replace it at the end of the 4th week. So that is 9th period, means previous to that. And the actual percentage of failure during a period for a subpopulation of items with the same age is the same as the expected percentage of failure during the period for that subpopulation. Let N1 is equal to number of replacements made at the end of the ith period, and if all the N items are new initially, thus N0 is equal to N0, N1 is equal to N0 into P1, N2 is equal to N0 P2 plus N1 P1. This is very important. And N3 is equal to N0 P3 plus N1 P2 plus N2 P1. So this P3, P2, P1 and 0, 1, 2, 3, N1, N2. And N4 is equal to, this is N0 into P4, N1 into P3, N2 into P2, N3 into P1, like this. So, and this is N7 and so on up to kth period. It has been studied that expected number of failure, except number of items failing in a such period failing in each period decreases initially and then decrease. Thus, the number of failure or replacement will continue to oscillate, and ultimately the system settles down to a steady state in which the proportion of items fail in each period is the reciprocal of their average life. So, the expected number of items failing in each period increased initially and then decreased, because you are replacing, automatically it will decrease. Number of failures are going to decrease. Thus, the number of failures or replacement will continue to oscillate, and ultimately the system settles down in a steady state in which the proportion of items fail. So it settles at a particular time. It does not oscillate for some. It will oscillate for some time. After that, it will stay automatically assumes a steady state. So with the proportion of items fail in each period is periodically average life. Individual replacement. The mean age of items 1 into P1, 2 into P2, 3 into P3, the number of up to 5 years, and this K into PK sigma IPT, whereas 5 refers to number of time periods. And number of failures in each period in steady state is equal to N divided by sigma T is equal, I is equal to 1 to N IP1. And the cost of replacing items individually and failures is equal to N divided by sigma T to the power of 1 to N I into P to the power of N divided by C. So this is the way, that is individual replacement. And similarly, group replacement, the replacement of all N items simultaneously costs C2 per item, and the replacement of an individual item on failure costs C1. The cost of replacement of all items simultaneously is computed as shown in table 1.3. So C1 stands for individual failures, C2 stands for group replacement of items, and it would be optimal to group replace all the items after every ith period when the cost of individual replacement in the I plus 1 period is greater than the average cost for the ith period.
పర్లేదండి.
Otherwise,
అందుకు కొంచెం తేడాగానే ఉంది, అప్పుడప్పుడు రక్తంగా అవుతుంది, బ్లడ్ వస్తుంది కొంచెం.
ఆజాద్ రోల్ నెంబర్ 302.
సారీ సార్, చూసుకోలేదు.
మ్యూట్ చేయండి సార్. ఓకే సార్. సార్ ఓకే సార్.
okay, it would be optimal to group replace all the items after every ith period, and the cost of individual replace I to I plus 1 period is greater than the average cost of ith period. Otherwise, the average cost will start increasing from I plus 1 period onwards. So, if you are unable to replace items at the ith period from I plus 1 period, if you are unable to replace the items in 5th month, so therefore the cost of the items replacement of items is going to increase from 6 months onwards, and the company is unable to bear and it will incur losses. So therefore it is better to replace in the ith period, that is 5th month or something like that, or 5 years or something. Next comes to end of the period 1, 2, 3, 4, that is first year, second year, third year, fourth year, like this. Cost of individual replacement N1 into C1. So N2 into C1, N2 into C1, N4 into C1. You can take this as month or year. Total cost of group replacement. So group replacement N into C2 plus N1 into C1. C1 stands for individual cost of the item. C2 stands for the group replacement cost. And similarly, this is second category, TC1. So plus N2 into C1, and TC2 plus N3 into C1, TC3 plus N4 into C1. So next, whereas this is by number of years, GTC, the value what you got in this column must be divided by the 1. So the value you got divided by this number of years or months in the second month, third month, fourth month, or 4 years. So further, when the individual replacement cost of ith period is less than the group replacement cost at the end of the ith period, the individual replacement of ith period is preferable. So the individual replacement of ith period is preferable means replacement in ith period, that is one has to see that, calculate this will be higher and this will be much lesser like this. At one point the value is going to increase. This value, the value of this particular column or row is going to increase in such a case. So you have to go for this replacement in the third year, like that you have to analyze. Or sometimes the cost is higher here, lower, again higher, again further higher. So therefore you have to replace everything in the second month. So that is the replacement. Other replacement problems, apart from individual replacement problems, replacement principles are also applicable to the problems of recruitment and staff promotion. Earlier we have also the same thing. In staffing problems, with a fixed total staff and fixed size of staff groups, the proportion of staff in each group determines the promotion age. Unemployment situations nowadays can be considerably improved by the possibility of expansion. So in the organizations where staff frequently float away, applying probability concepts, it is possible to determine the number of candidates to be recruited every year. So because of the much wider possibilities, people may flow away. In such a case, you have to devise a policy to recruit and replace the particular people. So number of candidates every year, so as to maintain the constant workforce in the organization. So if you do not have the constant workforce, automatically your organization will result in failures. Attempts were made to determine the number of staff to be recruited every year to maintain constant size of teaching staff in engineering college, where the staff are observed floating heavily by a model using probability concepts, which can also give promotion age of the new entrants. So in the every year, um, in a factory, if you assume a particular factory, people may go for other companies when the present company is unable to offer the promotion. And similarly, in an engineering college, people may flow also from one college to another college. So at the end of the April, that is at the end of the academic year, if you calculate, the staff will be reduced to cater the needs of the teaching in the college. In such a case, the management has to go for a particular policy of recruiting every year in May, so that the new staff can join and the entire strength of the staff can balance, and therefore entire staff can contribute to the particular college, or else if there is no recruitment policy or something like that, the students will suffer, automatically college will suffer. So like that, the individual replacement or group replacement can be observed in this particular case. So this is equipment rental problems. The word renewal means that either to insert a new equipment in place of an old one or repair the old equipment so that the probability density function of its failure lifetime will be equal to that of new equipment. Definition of renewal rate: the probability that a renewal occurs during a small time interval t plus t comma t plus delta t is called renewal rate at a time t, where t is measured from the instant of first machine was started. It is denoted by ht dt and is also called as renewal density function. Renewal density function, ht into dt is called renewal density function. So the renewal rate of an equipment is asymptotically reciprocal of the mean life of the equipment, that is ht is equal to 1 by lambda, reciprocal of the mean life. Equipment renewal comes under major preventive maintenance activity, which may include replacement of few parts and sub-items or conditioning of the equipment. With respect to this, detailed mathematical models are not discussed here, as the main focus area is on blocks and block replacements. So this is recruitment. Previously it is called replacement, workforce maintenance. This everything, other replacement policies meant workforce replacement, this is concerned, and equipment replacement, equipment renewal or replacement policies. So this is the second category in this renewal density function is one of the important item one has to understand. So the renewal rate of an equipment is asymptotically reciprocal of the mean life of the equipment. ht is equal to 1 by lambda is nothing but reciprocal of the mean life. Equipment renewal comes under the major preventive maintenance activity. Preventive maintenance activity, which may include replacement of few parts. So preventive maintenance means after the end of day or end of a week, there must be some maintenance of the particular machine, unless it may cause a larger disasters in the particular factory. So therefore, the maintenance can be with few parts or subsystems or entire conditioning of the equipment. With respect to this, detailed mathematical models are not available. This mathematical models for replacement of worn out parts or sub parts cannot be applied or not available. Therefore, it depends on the probability of this thing, or you have to keep certain items or subsystems or few parts in advance where there is a rigorous failure, rigorous wear and tear. So in such a case, if you are able to maintain a stock of the particular items, automatically the maintenance is going to be somewhat reduced. So this is going to be called as preventive maintenance. So bush and shafts, piston bearings, piston rings, all these are subjected to heavy wear and tear. So you have to keep certain bearings in advance, required bearings, radial bearings or roller bearings, whatever it may be. You have to keep them in store in advance. That is going to be called as the nothing but inventory of the particular items that demands, that has a greater demand in the particular factory. Or piston rings, you have to maintain a inventory for that. So like this, we cannot determine, or we cannot adopt any mathematical model. Only thing is that by probability calculations, we can maintain this particular thing. So with this, I'm winding up this particular topic. We'll deal everything in tomorrow. So I will go for a new topic tomorrow. So this is, I'm winding up. Okay, leave the meeting.